Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and pop culture. My name is Nicky, and I'm joined as always by the man who in 150 episodes has never shit the bed. It's Greg. How are you today, buddy?
I mean, I think regular listeners will know from a few episodes ago that is not entirely true.
Oh, fuck. So it is. Oh my God. I totally forgot about that. How did I forget about that? It was a sharp. It wasn't as bad as Scott's. Definitely. Yeah. So I think that was, oh, fuck, yeah, shit the bed. Okay. Is that the only instant? Yeah, it hasn't happened again since, has it?
No. It's a fairly rare occurrence. It's not like, it's not something I struggle with, you know?
You know, I wanted to make, it's something nice. It's the 150th episode. I tend to, on milestones, do a lovely thing and nice like that. I don't take the piss out of you.
Yeah.
I was saying you didn't shit the bed, so I thought I was being good. I could have come up with a lot worse, but obviously I didn't. But, oh well, never mind. How is everything? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm not bad. You find me in a state of transition because I have to apologise for perhaps sounding a little bit more echoey than usual, but we're in the process of moving our home office from the broom cupboard here into the spare bedroom. So the spare double bed has been moved into my daughter's room. Her old bed's been sent off to the tip. I don't know where the guys take it. I just give them money and they take it away, and they take all our shite away. And so we're going to have like a sofa bed in there for guests, but a better working environ, I think, for my wife and I, and definitely a better place to do the pod because this room is a wee bit echoey, even when the rug is down. But there'll be more things in the spare room / office to absorb the echo. There'll be the sofa bed, there'll be a big rug, there'll be a mini trampoline because my wife has bought herself a mini trampoline as part of her fitness regime.
Okay.
As a lady of a certain age, she needs to start doing her exercises, and she read somewhere that doing some exercises in a mini trampoline is good for a lady of a certain age's body and stuff. So this will be my last pod from the broom cupboard here. The next time I'll be in a bit more spacious surroundings.
Are you going to be recording whilst on the trampoline in the stage, or?
Well, I might do, but one thing that she's ordered, even though the desk that I'm sitting at the moment is perfectly good, she's ordered another desk, which is going to be one that you can adjust so you can stand at it.
Yes.
So perhaps the next pod I might be standing. Because sometimes if we usually record, well, we maybe not record for 2 hours, but we're usually chatting for over 2 hours between saying hello, saying goodbye, and recording the pod, and I do get a wee bit stiff.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I've not seen this desk. I didn't want to be involved. Just do whatever you want. It's just I don't need to make any more. I didn't need to make any more decisions that day. I make quite a lot of decisions at work, so I was like, just you do whatever you want. I don't care. She'll be the one that uses it the most anyway. So
okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Oh well. Sad to see the back of the broom cupboard, but delighted that I won't have to edit out the echo too much in future. So. It's okay. It swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, it's every cloud.
Nice. Every cloud. Nice. Okay. Everything else good with you?
Everything is good. We're still the conflict we're in the middle of rages on, but every day we hope and pray that, we don't pray because none of us believe in God, but we hope. My wife asks the universe, that's sort of the same as praying, that there'll be peace in the Middle East soon and we can get back to normal. But yeah, it could be a lot worse. So
No, it certainly could be. I meant to put this in the group the other day. I read this yesterday and I thought it was quite funny. Well, as you join us, like Italy haven't qualified for the World Cup, Ireland haven't qualified for the World Cup, Poland haven't qualified for the World Cup. Who the fuck are all the people in America going to support? Like, I know they'll support the US, but they always say they're Irish, Italian. Like, who the fuck are they going to support?
Well, I mean, I know Trump did say a few weeks ago that Iran qualified for the World Cup, and and he said that he said that the football team is more than welcome to participate. And I happen to know that the biggest Iranian population outside of Iran itself is in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Like the Kardashians, for example, are like second or third generation Iranian. So I guess everybody will be supporting Iran at the World Cup in America. The football team, that is, not the country.
We do have a lot of listeners in America. Hey, listener, if you're an American, you're listening to this, get in touch. Let us know who you're supporting at the World Cup. I would love to know. That'd be very interesting. All right, well, that's our political statement.
Did the USA not qualify then?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they're the host country, one of the hosts.
Well, of course, yeah. So
they
they
automatically qualify. Yeah, but they'll get papped out quickly, so who they're going to support afterwards? Plus, they always bang on about how they're quarter Irish or fucking their grandmother, their great grandfather once ate a bit of shortbread, so they're basically Scotch. Yeah. So
2/8 Welsh. Wales didn't qualify either. They and they looked like I mean, to not qualify in a penalty shootout is painful, but to not qualify 2 years to the day to not qualifying for the Euros in a penalty shootout is that's particularly painful, I think, for the poor old Welsh. And I'd like to have seen them join us in the World Cup.
Yeah, I would feel sorry, but I think the first thing I saw was, it must have been a tweet or something. I'm sure it was tongue in cheek of somebody obviously upset that they hadn't qualified and saying, I can't believe like shit countries like Curacao, Haiti and Scotland have qualified and we haven't. And I'm like, fuck you. So yeah, never mind. No sympathy there.
There's always one that ruins because the Welsh are basically Celts in the same way that the Scots are. Like, we should be close with the Welsh. But there's always one that has to take away all their goodwill with their toxic opinion.
It's the same as anything, Greg. I'm sure there's plenty of us Scots that would have a slightly different opinion on things. So maybe we should just leave it at that. Well, we speak about enough of them on the fucking podcast, that's for sure.
Yeah. All the Rangers Mark II fans will be supporting England anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. Never mind. Oh, well, they've got someone to do. Never mind. Okay, well, on our 150th episode, yes, it's our 150th episode, Greg. Shall we have a look at what's been happening in Scotland over the last couple of weeks, or maybe over the last 30 years?
Cue the jingle for the 150th time.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
I don't know if it is 150th time, Greg, because I can't remember if I didn't put the jingle in the first few episodes.
I don't think you did. I don't think we had the jingle, actually.
I think it was maybe episode 3 or 4 or 5 that I first put that in. I can't be fucked going back to check, so never mind. Let's say it's the 150th time.
I mean, I've considered going back to the first couple of episodes and listening, but if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit frightened.
When we did T2, I went back and listened to our Trainspotting episode. Uh-huh. I did not listen to it this time because I just didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I want to go back to the early ones.
It's pretty raw.
Pretty raw, pretty rough, Yeah, I don't know if I'd fancy that either.
Yeah. It's like the Beatles when they signed for that German label and they were essentially a backing band. You know what I mean? I didn't know that. Hadn't quite found. They only did one song. They backed this guy singing "My Bonnie." My Bonnie lies over the ocean. One of them basically. But now we're like the Beatles recording fucking Abbey Road. So we are. So
yeah, Abbey Road. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, well, some people would say that's their best album from a musical proficiency sort of. And just sort of kind of quality of like songs. But anyway, enough about the Beatles. So a little bit later on, we're going to be taking everybody back 30 years to the glory days of the mid-90s. And I do have a story from 1996. But before that, I'm going to do like a modern story that came from the Scottish Sun 4 days ago. And the headline reads, Banana Drama. Tesco accidentally order enough bananas for double an Scottish island's population. So people in Orkney are being offered free bananas after a supermarket accidentally ordered 38,000 of them, nearly twice the entire population. Tesco in Kirkwall tried to order 380 kilograms of bananas, but a serious slip-up left the store with 380 wholesale boxes, each holding approximately 100 bananas each. Nearly 7 tons arrived on the island over the weekend. It could not be returned to the mainland as strong winds disrupted the island's ferry service. A Tesco spokesperson said, due to an over-order of bananas to our Kirkwall superstore, colleagues have been inviting local schools and community groups to collect the fruit to redistribute locally. Paula Clark, who's Tesco's community champion, because that's a thing, posted a photo of herself in front of mountains of bananas on social media and urged residents to dig in. Toddler groups, football clubs and food banks have already flocked to the superstore to claim their free fruit. Residents living in Orkney's Outer Isles can get in on the action too, as Tesco have also arranged to send the fruit further afield. The banana drama is not the first time the island has grappled with delivery disasters in recent years. In 2024, a shop in one of Orkney's North Isles accidentally ordered more Easter eggs than the number of people living on the island. Sinclair General Store on Sunday meant to order 80 chocolate eggs, but accidentally arranged a delivery of 80 cases instead. The blunder left the small shop with 720 eggs for an island with a population of about 500 people. The owner, Dan Dafford, sounds a bit Welsh, decided to turn his bad luck into a good deed, raffling the treats to raise £6,000 for lifeboat charity, the RNLI. He told STV News, "It's nice that my stupidity can do something good for the RNLI, and people in the island love a competition, so it's worked out for the best." So, my daughter, my youngest daughter, of late, because my wife has got a habit of buying too many bananas, not as many as this. Because the thing is, the only people who like bananas in our house are me and my wife. Okay. And my youngest daughter has started every Friday, she makes banana bread. And I quite like banana bread. And she's starting to experiment. Sometimes she flings in some sultanas, a bit of cinnamon. She's getting good at it. Good. Are you a banana man?
I am a huge banana man. I love bananas. I love everything. I always have, like since I was a kid. I love anything banana flavored. So I always, banana milkshakes, banana cake, banana yogurt. If it's banana flavored, I will have it. Like anything. I remember me and my girlfriend went to the weed shop to get weed gummies. It's all legal here. It's fine. Yeah. And they had banana flavor. I was like, I'll have the banana flavor. If banana's on the menu, I'm having a banana. So yeah, love it.
The thing is, banana flavor it's similar to in the way that like watermelon flavor and bacon flavor, whilst all delicious flavors, they don't really taste like the thing that they're supposed to taste like.
No, it's like a synthetic banana flavor. Yeah. That's what I love. I do love actual bananas, and I always have bananas, and I'll have at least a banana every day. And
get your potassium.
Big fan. Yeah, get my potassium. Big fan of bananas. However, I wouldn't eat a huge amount. Like if Tesco were ordering extra and offering to me, that's a bit too much. But yeah, big banana man.
Do you know what I like to do with a banana in the morning?
Do I want to know?
I said the morning, not the evening.
Okay.
I like to chop it up and add it to my Weetabix with a wee pinch of cinnamon and some brown sugar and some lactose-free milk. It's a nice breakfast, and it keeps you going until at least 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I will usually put a banana in my porridge and with a bit of honey. Yep. And yeah, all set to go. Big banana fan.
Big banana man. You're like Eric.
But yeah, big fan of banana bread as well. I am. I have to be careful though, because a lot of the places you go, you get banana bread, they've got walnuts in it. And I have a bit of a strange, I wouldn't say an allergy, but I definitely feel something. Like my tongue does get a bit more swollen when
a bit more swollen.
A bit more swollen, yeah. Swollen tongue. But yeah, it does get a little bit, it feels a bit swollen sometimes when I've had walnuts. So I try to avoid them because, you don't want to kind of muck around with stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
yeah.
Well, have to be careful.
My daughter doesn't put walnuts in her banana bread because my older daughter has a, I don't want to say a mild nut allergy, because it's not, I mean, we don't have to stab her in the heart with an adrenaline pen if she has nuts by mistake, but they do make her quite poorly. She's very sick, and then she sleeps for about 15 hours, and then she's all right. So,
okay. Yeah.
So
That's not good.
We don't give her nuts. So we don't really have that type of nut in the house. Just the humble peanut can sometimes be found in the humble salted peanut, or perhaps cashew can sometimes be found in our snacks cupboard. But that's it, really.
I can't believe I'm fucking discussing the type of nuts we have. Jesus Christ, 150 episodes and it's come to this. Salted peanuts or pistachios are usually found in my nuts drawer. So
yeah,
there you go.
I like pistachios, but it's the hassle. You got to have something to put the shells in.
Yeah,
right?
so you just have 2 cups and bowls in front of you, one filled with pistachios and one for the shells.
1 man, 2 cups, one for the shells.
Exactly. Yeah. It's my favourite YouTube clip. 1 man, 2 shells.
2 cups. You just like the ritual, I think. I can imagine you like the ritual of having your discarded shells cup and your cashews cup.
Makes it a thing. And you have to work for your thing. And sometimes it's the pleasure of, like, if you have a bag or you put them in a bowl, and then when you get there and you find one that doesn't have the shell, and you're like, oh, it's exciting. Can I have that? And then you find a shell, it doesn't have one in it. And you're like, oh, you fucker. And you're like, oh, it must have been that one. Yeah, that I've already eaten. So.
And then you get the ones that are really, really hard to open. Like, they haven't even sort of separated. And there's that sort of jeopardy. Like, you could crack it open, there might be like a nut in there, maybe like a baby scorpion or something like that. Or, who knows?
I've ever thought there'd be a baby scorpion inside my fucking pistachios.
You might discover like a micro civilization in one of these hard to open nuts. You know what I mean? It could be anything in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Portal to Narnia or
portal,
something.
Yeah, portal. Yeah, who knows? Imagine that. I mean, that's like a setup to, it's almost like a setup to like an old kind of British TV cartoon, like something along the lines of Jamie and the Magic Torch. Like every time Nicky opens a really hard to open nut, he's sucked into this magical land. And you got loads of mates there because you go there so often because, there's always a few cashew nuts that are really pistachios that are hard to crack open,
Right, okay. So Nicky goes off to pistachio land and meets all the pistachio people,
Exactly, all the nut people, And
all the nut people.
Who would the threat be? There's always like a threat, isn't there? Who would the baddie be? What's the worst nut? Macadamia? Is that the worst nut?
The worst nut.
The kind of bland.
The worst nut.
The sort of bland macadamias, yeah.
For me, it'd be a walnut.
A walnut,
because it makes my tongue swell. So, the evil walnut.
A sort of witchy walnut that's always trying to fuck everybody up. And then Nicky comes just by chance and saves the day and then goes back to his living room later on.
150 episodes, people. Yeah, 150 episodes. This could be our Abbey Road. What was the Beatles' last album?
Abbey Road. It was the last album. It was the last album they released. The last album they recorded. The last album they released was Let It Be. But that was recorded before Abbey Road. So
okay.
There you go. Yeah, but if you're joining us, if this is the first time that you've ever listened to Culture Swally, it's pretty much like this every week.
Just wait till we get on to knob jokes.
I know. And I don't want to see my Nicky and Nutland treatment appear on fucking Nickelodeon or the Cartoon Network either.
I'll give you credit, don't worry.
Not unless I'm getting a good bit of buns. No, I wouldn't suggest that you would go off and do it. Just but somebody might be listening and be thinking, what a fucking great idea. The next thing you know, it's on fucking CBBC and you and I are sitting there fucking, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Where's the money?
Well, we'll stake claim to it. I'm sure we could sue because we've said it here.
Yeah.
This will be released. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that would be okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Protected. Anyway, that's the banana drama in Kirkwall in Orkney. What's your first story this week?
Well, my first story is from Aberdeen Live last week, Greg. And the only reason I picked this is because it relates to something we discussed on the last episode. So in the last episode of the pod, we covered the Good Time Girls. If you haven't listened to it, she is available wherever you get your podcasts. And in that, Sandy Morton often flew from Glasgow to Aberdeen and back. And we were like, can you even do that? That's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. So from Aberdeen Live last week, I tried to fly from Aberdeen to Glasgow with 3 flights, but it all went pear-shaped. A bonkers plan. Bonkers. Not our words, the words of Aberdeen Live. Plan to fly from Aberdeen to Glasgow via Belfast and Birmingham dramatically fell apart due to a single flight delay. Travel enthusiast Scott Manson decided to turn the 3-hour bus journey between the 2 Scottish cities into a little adventure by opting for air travel instead. This involved flying from Aberdeen to Belfast, then hopping on a second plane to Birmingham before catching another flight to Dublin and then finally making his way up to Glasgow. Why the fuck when you just get the fucking megabus?
I mean, if he's a travel enthusiast, you think he'd be fucking better at it. You know what I mean?
Discussing his ambitious plan on his Planes, Trains, Everything YouTube channel, Scott admitted he had reservations about the scheme even before embarking on it. He said, "Now I've looked at the itinerary, I've noticed that the connection time between flights gets shorter as the day goes on. The very last one I'm a little worried about, because at the time it seemed like a good idea. But now I look at it, I'm thinking there's a good chance I might get snookered tonight and get stranded at an airport." And that's precisely what almost happened. Scott did indeed get snookered due to a 1-hour flight delay in Belfast. But his tenacity, resolve, and knack for improvisation ultimately enabled him to fulfill his mission, albeit not quite as he originally envisaged. After boarding the first flight of the day from Aberdeen, Scott arrived in Belfast only to make a startling discovery. Belfast City Airport, named after the city's legendary footballer George Best, does not have a single bar.
It certainly used to.
I've never been to Belfast, so I'm not sure.
I used to fly into George Best Airport a lot because I used to work in Belfast. And it used to have a bar. I've had a couple of nice... Maybe it's not a bar. Maybe you can just get a drink in the restaurant. Maybe.
He does explain, with a comfortable 5-hour layover ahead of him, Scott's intention was to settle into a pub, but had to be swiftly revived for a coffee instead. "I was hoping there was a bar. The idea was to get a pint, stretch out for an hour and do some editing on the laptop. But there's a problem. There's no bars here. There might be one airside, but not landside. So why didn't you just go through to departures?"
Yeah.
However, further complications emerged. Still in Belfast, his itinerary fell apart. "I was checking my flight. It's delayed by 1 hour and 10 minutes. With only 1 hour and 45 minutes to catch his connection in Birmingham, Scott faced the prospect of missing his onward flight to Dublin. At this stage, he recognised they would need to reconsider his 611-mile odyssey around Britain and Ireland. "I'd like to try and at least make it to Birmingham," he said, before rapidly addressing alternative routes that could still see him home that evening. "With all due respect to the good people of Birmingham, I just want to get home tonight," he added, reflecting on his very complicated journey. He offered a revealing observation. "Over the years, I've done quite a few of these stupid stunts." Your word, Scott. "And to be honest, most of them work out okay. If there is a delay, it's nothing serious. But I'm always aware that the statistic that after 3 p.m, and do this, after 3 p.m, you are 50% more likely to have a cancellation or a delay." There you go, there's a fun fact for you. As anticipated, I was just thinking that. Yeah. As anticipated, he discovered that his late afternoon EasyJet service to Glasgow would leave Birmingham 22 minutes late, resulting in an arrival in Glasgow 41 minutes behind schedule.
That's nothing.
The sole alternative would have involved catching a coach from Birmingham to Wolverhampton, a prospect he swiftly rejected. "This change of plans has cost me about £75, he explained. "That's the cost of the EasyJet flight, but there's no way I was going to travel on National Express. I'm too tired for that. It would have made a good story, but no, I don't think so. It would have meant an overnight stay, and £75 is a bargain compared with the airport hotel for the night." Ultimately, he arrived back in Glasgow merely 30 minutes sooner than he would have done if he persisted with the Dublin route. He also delivered a scathing critique on the justification provided for the delay, saying it was because of operational reasons. It's almost as if they don't want to tell you why the cause of the delay, and it's their fault. He remarked, they don't want to tell you the case in case the delay extends to more than 3 hours, and then EU 261 compensation kicks in, so they don't want to commit themselves. "If you were to tell me why you couldn't make it due to operational reasons," Scott proposed, "you likely wouldn't get away with it. Anyway, despite the hurdles, however, he is adamant that he has no plans to abandon his adventurous travel challenges. So there you go, Greg. It didn't quite work out, but it did. He got to Glasgow in the end, but it was a bit of a round the house's way. But yeah, could you be arsed with that? Like,
no, the best way to travel between Glasgow and Aberdeen, or indeed Edinburgh and Aberdeen, is the train. Because you get to see all that lovely East Coast scenery when you get north of sort of Perth. In fact, just after kind of between Perth and Dundee is nice on the West Coast line. And if you're going from Edinburgh to Aberdeen, you not only do you go over the Forth rail bridge, you also go over the Tay Bridge as well. It's awesome. It's fucking brilliant.
It's lovely. Yeah. I used to like the train journey down. Like, you go past like Carnoustie and stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
It's beautiful looking out at the bay with like, yeah, it's a lovely train journey. Fuck flying that. Yeah.
Especially between Dundee and Aberdeen when you're right on top of the cliffs and you're going up through Montrose and Arbroath and Stonehaven and before you get into Aberdeen itself. It's awesome. I did it in October. I hadn't done it for ages. I think the last time I'd done it, so I did in October last year. I did it. So we're up to see my mum. I think the time before that I did it was when you and me and our mutual friend had a reunion in Aberdeen in 2019. I think that was the last time I'd got the train from Glasgow to Aberdeen to meet you guys.
Oh yeah,
so it's like 6 years, over 6 years since I'd done it. I really enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't enjoy, and I know this won't make any difference to you because you have given it up, but kind of a beer. You're not allowed to have a beer on a train. Although I think John Swinney has reversed that since. But they don't sell beers on the train anymore. But I think I could have taken a couple on, but I didn't realise that until it was too late. And it's quite nice looking out the window at the sea and sipping a nice cold can of Tennent's or something like that.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the life's simple pleasures, having a few cans and being able to sit and have a beer on the train. It's lovely. But nah.
Not to be.
Oh well. Not to be. Never mind. Anyway, that's our hero that tried to fly from Aberdeen to Glasgow. What else have you seen this week, buddy?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be taking the listeners back to the UK, Scotland, and indeed the world in 1996. So we thought it would be fun if we found a couple of news stories from 1996. Whilst we're going to be talking a lot about February 1996, the story I'm about to remind everybody of, or perhaps tell people for the first time, they may not be aware, is from October 1996. And it's quite timely, as Scotland have qualified, we may have mentioned it a few hundred times over the last few episodes, have qualified for their first World Cup since 1998. And this story comes from the qualifying games for that old tournament. October 1996, when the Scotland team turned up in Tallinn, obviously wounds healed from Euro 1996, fresh campaign to play Estonia, and Estonia didn't turn up. So this story comes from The Guardian. I don't know if we ever had The Guardian on before. And the story itself is 14 years old. It's a story from the vault from 14 years ago. And it begins, one team in Tallinn, there's only one team in Tallinn, sang the kilted hordes on the terrace of the Kadriorg Stadium in the Estonian capital. And for once, they had it literally, as well as metaphorically, dead right. Scotland were on their own as kick-off approached in the World Cup qualifying match. Estonia were 100 kilometres away, resisting an order from FIFA's international governing body to be at their grounds by 3 p.m. At the appointed hour, the Scotland team, the Yugoslav referee and his two assistants took the field, exchanged formalities in the centre circle, handshakes all around, and went through a mock coin-tossing ritual. As John Collins, the Scotland captain, won the call, one of the assistant referees, clearly a stickler for the rules, went to the home goal and checked the nets. The referee signalled the start. Billy Dodds, the Aberdeen striker, slipped the ball to Collins, whose first touch brought the second and final toot of Miroslav Radoman's whistle. Another famous victory was added to the Scottish canon, and the prospects of qualifying for France 98 from Group 4 had soared. Although it was yet to be confirmed, the scoreline is expected to read 3-0. The farce had been caused by the poor floodlighting at the Cadbury Org Stadium. On the Tuesday night, the Scots were concerned about the lighting, which caused difficulties in certain parts of the field, most notably from the low-level glare of temporary lamps focusing on one goal area. After some vacillation, I've never ever heard that word before, by the event's official FIFA commissioner, Jean-Marie Gantenbein of Luxembourg, it was determined that the march would start at its original time of 6:45 p.m. Gantenbein, however, was tormented through the night, and after hurried consultation with his FIFA bosses in Zurich, a final decision was taken to bring the match forward to 3 p.m. The Estonians insisted that it was a logistical impossibility for them, as some of their part-time players were still at work. as for their supporters, and the others were at a training camp in Kethna, 62 miles away. Avir Polak, the Estonian FA president, said, "We shall leave our headquarters at 4 p.m. as scheduled for a 6:45 p.m. kickoff. We know that the Scots will have been and gone by then, and there'll be no game today. But we do think the Scottish FA have been very, very unfair to us." The comic element of the affair was not lost on the travelling fans, who added another song or two to the repertoire. Sing in the Daylight, We Only Sing in the Daylight was followed by Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. So that was it wasn't the final game Scotland played to get themselves into the World Cup in 1998, but certainly an unusual fixture. I'm looking at the picture of the guys have just kicked off. John Collins is moving forward, and on the advertising hoarding, there's an advert for Joe Blogg's clothing. Do you remember Joe Blogg's?
Wow, I do, yeah. Holy shit. I remember this game very well, and the controversy and how it was like, oh, well, great, we'll be awarded a 3-0 win. No. We had to replay that game, and it ended in a fucking 0-0 draw. So that was the absolute outrage of that, fucking bastards. But yeah, I remember the ridiculousness of this, and yeah, it was just insane, this happening. With all the aftermath and everything, but yeah, never mind.
Do you remember Scotland were playing Spain? I think it was Spain, in Spain. And there'd been like some time between 2002 and 2005, I can't remember, and it was at night and the floodlights went out and the game had to be postponed.
Yeah, I do remember.
I can't remember which tournament they were. I remember I was watching it. It was like a midweek game. Me and my old flatmate were watching it, and Scotland were actually playing quite well. And I think this could be the Mandela effect, and we know that they sometimes do suffer from that. But I think Scotland were ahead by a goal, and I think we might have still won the game. I can't remember, but I do remember the floodlights going out and the game having to be stopped while they tried to sort it out.
Yeah, it was a friendly on September the 2nd, 2004. It was in Valencia. And the lights went out on the 59th minute, and it was 1-1.
It was 1-1, yeah. Which is, Spain have always been a fairly decent team in my lifetime. So
floodlights, yeah.
Drawing with Spain was quite a nice result for a Scotland fan, even at a friendly back then, you know. Yeah,
it certainly was. 1-1. Yeah. And Spain's goal was a penalty as well. So, you know, we did well. I don't know why I always kind of discount that when I'm like, oh, it was a penalty. It's almost like, it was a free goal, basically, you know.
They scored a penalty.
So it doesn't really count. It was 1-0 Scotland, really, but, you know, obviously it wasn't. But never mind. But, okay. Yeah, I do remember that. And now you mention it. Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So that's my 1996 news story. I believe you've got one locked and loaded there.
I do, yeah. I've got a story from 1996 as well, Greg, because we discussed this earlier about the brief. So I've got one from February 96. It's not actually, but it is. It's relating back. So this is from the BBC, Greg. We're going highbrow, the BBC. Or maybe not highbrow. It's the home of nonsense, actually.
Yes, yeah.
And this is from the 5th of February, 2026. And the headline is, see if you remember this, Greg. What happened to the baby born in an army truck in the 1996 big snow. Do you remember the big snow in 96 in February?
I remember the big snow over Christmas 1995. And I guess it probably ran into 1996 over New Year. I don't remember a big snow in February.
Well, let me educate you on this.
Okay.
The Roper family will always remember, or never be allowed to forget, the big snow, which effectively cut Dumfries and Galloway off from the rest of the country. In February 96, George and Joyce were waiting for the arrival of their third child, already about a week overdue, when near blizzard conditions struck. Due to their remote location near Kirkbean on the Solway coast, they had to be picked up in an army truck when Joyce went into labour to try and get her to the hospital in Dumfries about 12 miles away. However, baby Dean would not wait, and he was born in the back of the truck in a lay-by near New Abbey, becoming something of a celebrity in the process. The story of the unusual delivery featured in local and national newspapers, as well as television. 3 decades later, the man at the centre of it all is reminded of the story every time his birthday comes around. Dean, who now works as a tyre fitter in Dumfries, hears the details on an annual basis. Every year it gets cast up. I'm getting sick of heat. Every year it gets cast up. I'm getting sick of hearing it, said the 30-year-old. I don't see what the big deal was. I do try to keep it quiet, so when people start trying to search it up online, I'd rather they didn't. Fucking ungrateful little cunt. Looking back, his mum Joyce remembers the day when the snow started, Monday the 5th of February, very clearly. They were staying at a wee farmhouse, and which at the time was quite out of the way. I think when the snow started, I don't know why she's from the Hebrides, but she is. I think when the snow started, because we stayed near the shore, we thought, it'll last, sounds like Mrs. Doubtfire, it'll last maybe tonight and be gone the next day, she said. We didn't think it would stay as long as it did, or keep snowing as long as it did. The snow kept falling and would become the area's deepest February snowfall on record. By the following day, around 2,500 people had sought refuge in an emergency rescue centre. I don't remember any of this. Many of them stuck on the A74 motorway throughout the region. A council report on the events described the region as effectively cut off from the outside world for a number of days. By the time Joyce went into labour on the Wednesday night, the area's major emergency scheme had been activated and the army had been called in to provide assistance. It was quite scary when I discovered I was going into labour and I'd be on my own to deliver because of the snow, she said. I thought nobody would be able to get through to give us support, really. However, when they were preparing to be talked through the process themselves, someone did get through and try and take them to hospital. It was an army truck, which did have a red cross on the side, so it was sort of an ambulance. But to be fair, I was just glad to see it. I didn't care if I was getting to the hospital, just as long as I got to the hospital. There was 2 soldiers, 2 paramedics in the ambulance, with a doctor following behind in his 4x4. Why was he behind? 4x4. But the baby arrived before they could get to the hospital, just before Newton Abbey, which is about 7 miles down the road. He couldn't wait, and that was when he was born. At the time, you just don't care who's around, and we just had a bouncing baby boy, she added. Looking back, she has fond memories, a lot more fucking fond than Dean obviously does. Yeah. At the time, I was thinking it's no big deal, but now I think it's nice, especially for Dean, to be told the story that he was born in the back of an army ambulance or an army truck. I think he's got a nice story about his birth. It was in the papers and it was on television, and I was like, oh gosh, because I'm quite a shy person. Husband George said he was panicking at first, but he was delighted that everything went smoothly. So yeah, that is the story of the Roper family and the ungrateful Dean, who just hates... I mean, I guess it's annoying. He's 30 now. When were you born? Oh, are you the army truck baby? Like, I mean, it's better than being, I don't know, the kid that shit his pants or something, or you know.
or the pub toilet baby. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, so he's the army truck baby. It's quite a cool story. It's
fucking millennials, mate. Just, is he a millennial or is he a Generation Z?
He would be, probably if he was born in 96. I think that's just on the cusp, I think. Right. I think it is, yeah. I think he's a millennial. Yeah.
Never happy.
But never happy. I'm a millennial.
Only just.
Aye, so he's on the opposite side of the spectrum to me, effectively, the millennial.
He's in the fag end of being a millennial, you know what I mean? You're at the filter end.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not true. You can't
I'm
be
at
the
the very
filter
start.
end. You're at the tip. You're at the
tip.
bit end. Yeah, he's at the fag end.
Just the tip. Aye,
Yeah, just a tip.
just the tip. Always a good one. So yeah, ungrateful little bastard. But yeah, it would be annoying, surely. But you make a thing of it. I'm the army, baby. Or you just move out the region and nobody knows about fucking what happened.
Maybe if he tried harder at school, it'd be a fucking tyre fitter and he could have gone somewhere else. Nobody knew.
But then you must have to bring it up at some point. Like, unless, did people going to remember? Like, oh, you must have been born in the big snow.
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a kind of provincial place round there, isn't it? My dad was born in the Borders. My dad was born in Hawick. And I think him and my auntie lived for their first few years in Creetown in the Borders. Before they moved back up to the Central Belt. I think my granny had to move in and look after my recently widowed great grandfather because she was the youngest, so they all just fucking moved back. It's mad. It seems mad. And what's even madder about it is that my grand sister, my great auntie, when I was at the house that my grandparents lived in my whole life until they passed away, was the house that my great grandfather had lived in. My gran lived in that house when she was little, and her sister lived 4 doors up.
Oh wow!
And my gran still had to move from the Borders to go south to look after my recently widowed great-granda with the family because she was the youngest, even though her big sister lived a few doors away. Mental. Wouldn't happen now.
Fucking scandal, Franco. Yeah. Well, shocking.
Yeah.
But yeah, never mind. That is the story of Dean, the baby born in the army truck.
Well,
so
it could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I'm going to find him on social media and send him a message on his birthday next year.
Yeah.
Were you born in the army truck? Are you the army truck baby? No, I wouldn't do that, obviously, of course not. Have you seen anything else from 30 years ago, Greg?
I've not. I haven't.
Okay.
No news stories.
Right. Well, before we go back in time to discuss what we're going to be discussing on this episode, I don't know where I was going there, let's have a little word from our sponsors.
Choose a family, choose a career, choose life. But why would I want to do a thing like that?
No 4 friends were ever this close. No 4 friends ever went this far.
What's on the menu this evening, sir?
Yeah! It was the craziest scam in a lifetime of crazy scams. This is the movie Rolling Stone calls hilarious and electrifying.
Choose your future.
Trainspotting, rated R.
Okay, Greg. So, technically, it wasn't your choice on this episode, but it was kind of a joint suggestion. But are you going to tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes. So, I am going to transport us on a metaphorical magic carpet back to the golden days of 1996. When it was legal to smoke in a bus stop as well as a pub. Jarvis Cocker foiled what might have been an attempt by Michael Jackson to abuse a load of kids on the stage at the Brits. We'll never know the real reason. And a little movie was released in February, which would go on to define probably the next maybe even 10 years of British film. Of course, we've come back to talk about Trainspotting, the movie that is. And we've spoken about Trainspotting before, like way back in a very early episode, spoke about the movie, but today we're obviously going to be talking about the movie, of course, but we're mainly going to be talking about the impact that Trainspotting had on us as people who were old enough to remember it coming out and to be part of it, but more importantly to the impact it had on music and movies and general culture in the UK back in the late 90s. So I am a little bit older than you. I was lucky enough I was 17 when Trainspotting came out. I was in 6th year at school. I had read the book a few months before because I was friends with a kid at school called Martin Scott. I had seen there was a teaser trailer for Trainspotting at the beginning of Shallow Grave, which was Danny Boyle's first movie. He had been a TV director. I think he'd done some music videos as well. But he'd done things like Cracker, which was a really successful British drama series. starring the late Robbie Coltrane. Shallow Grave was his first movie. And there was I remember renting it, and there was a trailer for Trainspotting, like a teaser trailer, but it didn't really give much away really about the movie. I didn't really know anything about it. I hadn't heard of the book. And then I don't know how I came to hear a little bit about it, but I remember Martin Scott at school had a copy of the book, and it was the copy, I don't have his copy, but I've got the same print, and it's the kind of classic one with the bottom, like the bottom half of the cover is silver with the red print, and the characters in the front with the skull masks on. And I read the book in a day because we got sent home early from school because they were expecting a big snow. You think that we planned all this in advance, and we don't. It's just the serendipity. Every episode, there was serendipity. They were expecting a big snow. I think it was before Christmas, maybe late 1995. And I read the book in a day. And then I read The Acid House after that. And so when the film came out, I couldn't wait to see it. And of course, Martin, being the good guy that he was, he had passed the book around. So a lot of my friend group had read it by this point as well. So when the film came out, me and my pal Brendan and my friend Graham had just passed his driving test. So we set out on the Saturday after the film was released. It came out on the Friday. We set out on the Saturday. We drove from the Aberdeenshire countryside into town on the Saturday night to go and see the film at the Odeon on Justice Millbrae. And the film, when you watch the film now, is compared to modern films, it's pretty short. You know what I mean? It's like it's like a tight 90 minutes. But I remember coming away from the cinema just wanting to watch it again, you know, and, you know, if I could have my time again, I might have just come out, bought another ticket and gone back in again, you know what I mean? But it was a Saturday night and the pub was calling us, and we came back to our local, and we sat and had a few beers and discussed the film, and we met up with people that hadn't been with us, and we told them all about the film. Yeah, and because it took a lot longer back then for movies to be released for the home market, I didn't get to see it again until I think they came out on video maybe October that year, and by then I was in college. And if you remember HMV, well, it was the Virgin Megastore as it was in Aberdeen back then on Union Street, they would sometimes sell rental shop copies of films. Because if you remember, the video boxes were always bigger, right?
Yeah.
And I was at the Aberdeen College campus in the Bridge of Dawn at the Gordon Centre next to the barracks. That's where my course was being taught. And at lunchtime, I got the bus into town because I knew it was being released that day, and the Monday I got the bus into town, picked up my copy. I paid maybe £20 or £25 for it because it was a rental copy. And I think those rental copies, there was a better quality of tape, I think, because obviously they had to be able to stand up to being played loads and loads of times. Yeah. That's probably why it was more expensive. And I couldn't wait to get it home. And I remember the trailer, the two trailers I remember at the beginning of that film, 3 trailers, sorry. There was a trailer for a Michael Winner film, which was basically Death Wish with a woman. I can't remember what it's called. Bad Boy Bubby. Remember that trailer? Bad Boy Bubby.
No, I don't remember that at all.
Some fucking mad Australian film. And a film that we've spoken about on this podcast, although a long time ago, Small Faces, about the gang scene in Glasgow in the 1960s. So yeah, I mean, I think I was the perfect age to just be drawn in, to just be really kind of bewitched and bedazzled by this film. I was already all the way in on the book. I'd read the book a few times by this point. I bought my own copy by this time. I'd read it maybe 2 or 3 times before I saw the film. But anyway, how about you? What's your relationship with Trainspotting?
It's the first time I've seen it for the talk today. I was only 14 when it came out, so I was obviously a lot younger. I think it was my 15th birthday, like about 5 days after it came out, 4 days after. Obviously too young to go and see it at the cinema. So were you, if you were 17.
I was too young, but I was lucky enough to be tall. I was getting served in the pub by the time I was 17.
Okay, let you off then. So I couldn't go to the cinema to see it. And you're right, I think it came out around about October. But I asked for it for my Christmas. So I did. I got it for Christmas that year. Now, by this point, I still hadn't seen it. Now, at the time, I was very much into my music and was regularly getting like music magazines and stuff. So, of course, it was in all the magazines and it was everywhere. You couldn't avoid Trainspotting that year.
Yeah.
It was such a wonderful year, as we'll discuss, like Euro 96, the Spice Girls, everything was kind of hitting. So I managed to avoid seeing it. So the first time I saw it was Christmas Day, 1996.
Right.
I got the box set for my Christmas, and it was like a double video. So it came in this orange kind of box, and the first cassette was Trainspotting, the film, and the second cassette, you opened it up, and I already had the Reservoir Dogs box set like this. So it was a Trainspotting one, and when you opened it up, inside there was a lighter, but it was like a classic kind of, it wasn't a Zippo. The Reservoir Dogs one came with a Zippo, but this Trainspotting one, it was like this orange lighter, but it was like a Zippo. You had to fill it up with lighter fluid and stuff. But it was cool. A Rizla case, like a metal Rizla case with Trainspotting embossed on it, and a pair of like John Lennon sunglasses.
Right.
I think they were meant to be like the ones that Renton wears when he's in the park with Sick Boy just before they shoot the dog. But they didn't look like that. But they were this orange kind of cheap John Lennon style glasses. Anyway, I don't think I ever used any of that shit, but it was just nice to have. Unlike the Reservoir Dogs one, which came with fucking much better stuff. Came with a proper Zippo, came with this leather address book, which was Joe Cabot's little black book, and 2 pin badges and stuff. It was good.
I seem to remember Rick, because I'm sure there was probably more than one box set for certain movies. I think at one point they released a Reservoir Dogs box set with a little rubber ear with some blood on it.
Yeah, I've got a vague memory of that as well. You're right. Yeah, I think it did. Yeah. So I would have watched it Christmas Day. Would have had, obviously got it, opened it in the morning, would have had all the Christmas stuff during the day, watched whatever the film was, family stuff, probably watched Only Fools and Horses or whatever was on that day. And then I remember going up to my room probably about 8 o'clock and watching Trainspotting and being fucking blown away. And that's the thing, you're right, it's 93 minutes long. I always forget how short Trainspotting is because it's so much in this film, but it's so fast paced and frantic, and it just doesn't let you go from the moment. Yeah. Like I watched it 2 nights ago, and it just flashed, like went by in a flash. I remember watching it on Boxing Day. I remember watching it the day after. I probably watched that about 7-8 times in between Christmas and New Year. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this film, like countless times, even having it on in the background. The amount of times. Remember, I was like 15 at the time, and this was before the internet. So there's a certain scene in this film I watched a lot.
There's it occurred to me when I was watching this thing, when I was watching Trainspotting for the podcast today, and I don't know how many times I've seen it. Like it's got to be one of maybe a handful of films that it's got to be perhaps even well over 50, maybe even getting near 100 times by this stage. I've seen it potentially. I couldn't even say, but it's one of those films that I know every line of it almost, But the thing is, I was watching it today. Not today. I was watching it this week, and obviously, the actors that are in the film, we know these actors. They've been in loads of things since Trainspotting, especially Ewan McGregor, because arguably this film, you could argue this is a film that made him the Hollywood superstar that he is today, right?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah, of course.
Now, if you were watching this film and you didn't know any of the actors, right? If I found some kid on the street here in Dubai and said, "Here, watch this film," and he didn't know any of the actors, it doesn't feel like it was made in the mid-90s. It could have been made like a couple of days ago. You know what I mean? Like this because the thing about it is the music in the film. There was already the Scorsese and Tarantino and other directors had already started really using popular music really effectively in films. You know what I mean? Like, so that existed already. So it wasn't like, so Danny Boyle wasn't doing anything innovative there with the soundtrack, although it's got some great songs on it. But people were doing that already, but just, it's kind of, the book is, and I think the film is supposed to be set in the late 80s, because the book is very much set in the late 80s, but it never speaks to that. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of the fashion, you know, like it's particularly what Begbie wears. He's got his Pringle jumper on, he's got the loafers and the trousers and things, and a little bit like what Tommy wears as well, you know, with the Doc Martens, with the turned up jeans and all that kind of thing. So essentially, you say it's like a period piece. Doesn't feel like an old film at all to me. Obviously, I know it's an old film. I know it's 30 years old because I've been watching it for 30 years. But if I was watching it for the first time today and I wasn't familiar with any of the actors in it, I guess what I'm trying to say in a really long-winded way is that it hasn't really aged.
No. It hasn't, and I thought that as well. I can't remember if I did this when we did Trainspotting. I've got a funny feeling I did, but I've tried to set when is this set, because obviously, exactly as you say, the book is set in like the 80s, like the kind of period. I wanted to see, is there anything that kind of does date this in terms of when it is? So the Lager Lovelies, they feature on all their Tennent's cans. They were axed in 1991. So we know it's before then or around about, because they were axed, but probably had a 6-month surplus or something. So we know it's before, it's 1991 or before. Now, Tommy saw Iggy Pop last year, according to Renton.
Yeah.
Now, it obviously, because then you forget how long is covered in this film as well. Because Tommy, when he's speaking to Spud, says, I've got the ticket. Then later in the film, after Renton has slept with Diane again, and she's talking about you need to move on, you know, listening to Ziggy Pop. And Renton says, Iggy Pop, he's still alive. Like Tommy saw him last year. So he played Scotland in December 88 and January 91. So could be either of those, you would think. Yeah. Possibly. The other thing that mentioned, because I fucking searched for anything that I could find in this, they mentioned Sean Connery winning the Academy Award for The Untouchables. That was April 88. So this is either set in 1989 or 1990, is my conclusion.
I mean, I think the book is set in the late 80s. I always kind of think of the book to be around 1988. 87, 88 is when I always kind of think of it. And like Welsh doesn't really mention, he doesn't when the book is set in the stories, because the book is a collection of stories about these characters. So it's like the narrative it's a fairly thin, it's just a collection of stories. But then when he comes back to the characters in film, in stories like Porno and Skag Boys, he sort of, especially Skag Boys especially, which is the prequel to Trainspotting, and it has a fairly clear narrative. The narrative being the characters that we know from Trainspotting and how they are introduced and become addicted to heroin, along with a few little subplots. But, Trainspotting's not like that. But maybe because I've read the other books so much, it does feel, I've always kind of put Trainspotting around 87, 88. The book, that doesn't necessarily mean that Boyle and John Hodge, the screenwriter, meant for the movie to be set at that time.
I think that's, they've left it quite ambiguous in terms of things. They've left it maybe a little bit kind of ambiguous in terms of when it is set, because you're never sure. And I watched Trainspotting 2 last night, and I was trying to work out, like, is there anything else? But that just kind of messes with your head. I think they've messed up the timeline there a little bit, because Renton talks about going to see George Best play for Hibs, but he says he doesn't remember it. His dad took him, but his dad told him. But George Best played for Hibs in like 79 to 81. Yeah. So surely you'd remember that because if it's set in the 80s, he's already in his 20s. Because then T2, they do speak about 20 years ago, and they've got iPhones and stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of set modern day, and they say that Tommy was 23 when he died. Yeah. Completely messes up.
It does a bit, yeah.
Let's just enjoy. But I just kind of, my little anal thing, I wanted to kind of go into that and stuff. But yeah, I mean, at this time when it came out, it was just incredible. Like, the films that you watch at that time, I think, stay with you. And this was like nothing I'd seen before. Like, I was a huge fan at the time, like, of Tarantino. I love Pulp Fiction. I love Reservoir Dogs. Yeah. I remember I saw Pulp Fiction that summer. So I definitely saw that summer 96.
Right.
Saw that on video. I remember going to the video shop and renting Pulp Fiction and Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Right.
And watching it after, I think I might have watched it after the Scotland-England game, Euro 96 or something. I might have like consoled myself by watching Pulp Fiction.
I had seen Pulp Fiction the summer before because I was staying at my dad's and we rented it, and I'd watched. So I'd seen Pulp Fiction summer 1995, and then a kid at school had bought it on video and went back to school, and so I borrowed it off him and watched it like a few hundred times before I gave him it back. But I mean, I think I would say that Pulp Fiction and a few other movies, like I saw Goodfellas maybe like a year before that. It was on Channel 4. I think it was like the TV premiere, and it was really the beginning, or maybe a couple of years before that. It was really the beginning of a bit of like a real sort of film obsession, I think. So like when this came out, I was buying Empire, I was buying all the movie magazines, I was I was all in.
But that's why I think that I don't know if Boyle's ever said, but there must be some influence there in terms of the Tarantino, because Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are two other films that are kind of timeless in a way.
Yeah.
There's never a time, you don't know when it's set, what's going on. There's old cars, there's new cars, there's a lot of old music, there's a couple of, it's almost kind of like a timeless thing, which I think is what you were kind of saying. Trainspotting almost is. Like, this film could be made tomorrow. I know it's from 96, but you never know when it's really set. And I think that's something that really works with it. I think also at the time, we'll speak about it, but like the UK films, the UK cinema, it had a massive boost from Four Weddings and a Funeral a couple of years before. But at the time, UK films were basically like Hugh Grant stuttering with his floppy hair, or
Merchant
Judi
Ivory.
Dench, or some sort of period piece or something.
Let me tell you what the top 10 highest grossing movies in the UK were of 1996, and I think it illustrates your point perfectly. So I'm going to start at number 10. Number 10, with a gross of £12.2 million. Bearing in mind it's the 90s.
Yeah.
The Nutty Professor.
Okay.
Number 9, Trainspotting. 12.5 million, we'll say. Number 8, Jumanji, the original one with Robin Williams. Number 7.
I didn't think it was the remake with The Rock.
You never know. Number 7, Babe, the one about the pig, the sheep pig.
Oh, yeah.
Number 6, along the lines you just mentioned, it's Sense and Sensibility, the Emma Thompson one that won all the Oscars. Number 5, Twister.
Oh, yeah.
Number 4, the first Mission Impossible movie.
Oh, wow.
Number 3, Seven.
Oh, wow.
Number 2, Toy Story. And number 1, and it's a film that I didn't like when I went to see it at the cinema, and I still don't like it. I really, really don't like it, and I apologize. If you're a fan of this film, people at home, that's fine. I'm not criticising your taste. I'm just telling you that I fucking hate this film. It's Independence Day. Will Smith and Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum. And
Why'd you hate Independence?
it's fucking, mate, it's rubbish. It's always been rubbish.
I don't think I've ever seen Independence Day.
It's a scam. Independence Day is a scam. I remember going to see it with a friend of mine called another Martin. He's a good friend of mine and who I've got a lot of respect for, called Martin Ingram. And he was completely swept up in the epicness of it. And Bill Pullman is the F-14 flying president of the US. And fucking Will Smith, who I've never been a big fan of. And this film did not help me to... I liked Will Smith in The Fresh Prince. I didn't mind him in Bad Boys the first time I seen it, but I struggle with him in rewatches of Bad Boys now. He's in this. It's just, it's fucking rubbish. They've basically taken The War of the Worlds, which is one of my favourite books. It's set in Victorian England, or Martians invading Victorian England. Love the book, love it. And they've taken it, adapted it, put it in mid-90s America, and it's just full of speeches and American flags, and the aliens are ripped off from the xenomorphs in the Alien films. They look exactly like them, only got more arms. I think that's it, and they fly spaceships. It's fucking. If you've not seen it, never watch it. It will do nothing for you. It will not serve you. Watch, if you've not seen Independence Day, watching it will not serve you. So don't watch it if you haven't already seen it. All right, it will not serve you. It's crap.
Okay. Would you say that this film? it defines our generation. Would you say this is our Saturday Night Fever? This is our Quadrophenia. This is our Grease. This is our defining film. I can't think of anything else.
This
Pulp
is our
Fiction, maybe.
Rebel Without
but
a Cause. It's our American Graffiti or To Sir With Love. Yeah, for sure. And what I think is ironic about this film is that, we just spoke about the timeline. I think it's fair to say that at least it's set in the very beginning of the 90s, but probably the late 80s. And yet it defines so much of the rest of the 1990s. From a cultural sense.
So, 96 was, I fucking hate the term Cool Britannia, but it was. I'm a huge
Was it though?
fan.
Was it Cool Britannia? Because we didn't have New Labour by then. I thought Tony Blair was the Cool Britannia guy. We were still a year off. We still had the creaking, wheezing elephant of John Major's Conservative government in 1996 when this came out.
Well, I mean, this was, maybe the following year was like the hype of, but this was for me this was Euro 96. Britpop was in its massive pump. I mean, it was at its peak, I would say, in this days. The Spice Girls came out in 96. This was a pivotal year.
The second best-selling album in 1996 in the UK. So I was just having a look at, if they've got the top 100, 50, I'm not going with but the top 10, it does not speak to Britpop, really. What's the Story Morning Glory is at number 2 of the best-selling albums in 1996. The best-selling album in the UK is Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Then it's the Spice Girls. Then it's Celine Dion, for George Michael, older. Robson and Jerome, Take Two, is at number 6. The Score by the Fugees, good album. Take That, greatest hits. Simply Red, greatest hits. And then The Beautiful South. Mosley Shoals is the closest Britpop album to the top 10, and that's at number 11. And then you've got
Ocean Colour Sea.
Jamiroquai are in there at number 15. The Kula Shaker are there at number 16 with their first album. Pulp are there at number 19. Mannix number 20. Definitely Maybe are still there.
I mean, I think you could say, What's the Story? That came out in 95. So for it to be number 2 in the charts in 96 is still pretty good going. And Jagged Little Pill's a fucking incredible album.
Brilliant album.
I still listen to Jagged Little Pill. Fucking love that album.
But do you know what the best-selling single was in 1996 in the UK? It's Killing Me Softly by the Fugees.
Ah, okay.
And then Ooh Ah, Just a Little Bit by Gina G's at number 6.
Well, she took us to Eurovision with that song. It was wonderful. Cool Britannia apparently defines, the increased pride in the culture of the UK in the mid to late 90s. So it coincided with the latter years of John Major's government and the 1997 general election. So I'm going to say 96, we were very much in Cool Britannia. And it first appeared, and it reappeared, the phrase Cool Britannia reappeared early 96 as a registered trademark for one of Ben & Jerry's ice cream flavours. Okay, really? Fair enough. The Channel 4 had a magazine show. 96. And Channel 4 had a magazine show called Cool Britannia in 1996 as well. So Cool Britannia was around in that time. And it was just this huge year. And if I could go back and live a decade of my life. I know this is bad. Just as fucking Sick Boy says in Trainspotting 2, nostalgia, you're a tourist in your own youth.
Yeah.
I would pick 96 to 2006. That's the decade I would love to live again.
The glory days.
What? I wouldn't do anything different. I'd maybe do a couple of things differently. But
I was thinking about this, and I thought, would it be cool to be able to relive those years, but knowing and having all the awareness and knowing what I know now as an adult in my let's not sugarcoat it, late 40s, right? My mid-40s are fucking retreating behind me. They're in the rear view. I'm galloping to the cliff of late 40s. I'll be there by the summer. And the thing is, all the things that made those years so memorable, all the little adventures and everything else, I probably would not have got involved in with the comparative maturity that I have now. You know what I mean? Now, I might have been a bit, I don't know, I was going to say because physically, I was probably in my sexual apex, but mentally, I definitely wasn't. Whereas now, physically, I'm definitely not. Like, I'm on the downward trajectory of my sexual prowess, but mentally, so maybe I would be better in bed back then than I was. So I'd be a bit cooler. I would just be like amazed that some girl was consenting to have sex with me. But I don't know, because I think you develop a sort of natural caution as you get older that you don't necessarily have when you're in your late teens and early 20s. And that's why they're such good years, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they definitely are. Why not? Fuck it. Trainspotting is a film that has a lot of humour in it. And a lot of, Scottish humour. It's a funny film. Very serious. And I think if people look back on it, it'd be, oh yeah, it's a great film. Fucking Trainspotting, yeah, it's great. This is a film about drug addiction, AIDS, and infant mortality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a laugh a minute, really, but, and you're kind of like, it's all over the place, but in a good way. Like things that are just, and rewatching this again, there's a couple of scenes that there's one in particular that I really am like, oh, God. It's not the one you might think. Well, you might think there's a few, but there's one in particular that I'm like, oh, Jesus. It's an art in itself that this film covers all those serious topics, but yet it's still seen as this light, Trainspotting. But is it? Because some people I mention it to, they think instantly of, oh, is that the one with the dead baby? And in doing this podcast, I actually went on YouTube and I watched a couple of videos of, you get these reaction videos, people watching Trainspotting for the first time, mostly Americans. And they're watching it and they're enjoying it and like, oh, this is funny. And I'm like, right, fast forward to the dead baby. And fucking horrified. Like, why? Why would they put this in a film? Why would they do this? And then fast forward into obviously Renton's withdrawal scene when the baby's on the roof. Now, that's not, I've never found that bit particularly scary or difficult. The baby in the cot dead, I don't like that. But the crawling on the ceiling, because it looks fake as fuck. That freaks people out. And I think watching it with a lot of these reaction, it's tarnished a lot of people's thoughts of the film because there's a dead baby in it.
Yeah, I think, this isn't the first time that a kind of grittier side of Scotland has been portrayed. Because we've done, and you and I have done a ton of Peter McDougall plays that are probably the best example. But it's probably the first time that that a kind of grittier, more realistic, modern version of Scotland was ever shown in the cinema on that kind of scale. Because if you think about it, like the last two sort of Scottish movies would have been Braveheart and Rob Roy, which are a kind of romantic, historical sort of saga. Whereas now we're seeing this, kind of nuts and bolts, serious social problem, because at the time, Glasgow had a terrible problem with heroin, like a horrendous problem with heroin in Glasgow when this came out. In Edinburgh, I think, was kind of starting to maybe perhaps see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it had a horrendous problem with heroin, which I think is one of the inspirations for Welsh who lived through it to write the book. And I don't know, like, you and I have mentioned on this loads of times about the kind of modern prism and how perhaps younger generations view this kind of thing. But, you can have, like, well, certainly back then, you could have humour in a movie that was dealing with a incredibly serious subject, because it's not just about drug addicts. It's and they lean into this in T2. It's about friendships and people growing apart and people trying to be more than their environment or escape from their environment, as Renton does at the end of the film. You know what I mean? There's so much more going on. Although heroin and drug addiction is the kind of the sort of star that they all kind of orbit around, but it's not only about drug addicts. I think that's the thing. And you could have a movie dealing with a serious subject and still have some kind of gallows humour in there. And there's, like you mentioned, loads of really funny bits. The bit with Spud when he shits the bed, the nightclub scene when Tommy and Spud are talking about how Alison won't have sex with with Spud. Renton buying the suppositories of Mikey Forrester. There's loads of humour, but there's also like some really hard-hitting things in there as well, like the poor baby Dawn, when Begbie glasses the guy in the pub towards the end of the film, mean, that's fucking
the
horrendous.
Scene, that's
it's
the scene I struggle with.
You feel it. You know what I mean? Like the sounds, the splashing of the beer on the floor, the blood, the guy's reaction. I mean, even the first time I saw it, I really felt like I felt it. You know, it must be one of the worst things to have somebody smash a glass in your face. You know what I mean? Like that. Like horrendous.
Yeah. That's the scene I just can't. It's like, fuck. And it's because, like you say, you feel it. And it's the noise and the sound. And oh, Jesus.
Fuck's sake!
Sorry, mate. I'll buy another one.
Ruin my fucking suit, you fucking idiots!
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
Well, sorry's not going to dry me off, you cunt.
Cool down, Frank. When a man says he's sorry.
You're sorry enough for being a fat cunt.
Fuck you. If you can't hold a pint, you shouldn't be in the pub, mate. Now fuck off.
Yeah, but you know what? I really feel like they're, you know, like the filmmakers here, they're trusting the audience. You know what I mean? Whereas now I think, you know, sometimes, you know, and especially, you know, I think you mentioning those reaction videos is a good example of it. You know, like, I think there's a feeling like, well, you can't have humour in a film that deals with serious social issues, but British filmmakers have been doing it for years. Ken Loach has been doing it since the 1960s. You know, like movies that deal with various social problems and things over the years that he's making films. But there's a lot of humour. Peter McDougall, his scripts, you know, like Just Another Saturday. When Saturday Comes, rather, about the Orange Walk and everything and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, sectarianism, but there's a lot of humour in it as well. Because it's real life. And although there's a lot of surreal moments in Trainspotting, like kind of Renton going down the toilet, his withdrawal scene, even his overdose scene when he sinks into the carpet, there's a lot of real life in it as well. You know what I mean? Like those devices are used, them sinking into the carpet, for example. It's a device that's used to sort of try and bring the audience into perhaps what it feels like to suffer from an overdose and be kind of looking out and not being able to react and, you know, but still being aware of what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking, you know, what are the kind of modern dramas on TV or movies that are able to deal with serious issues and still have humour in them now? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Like in terms of films and stuff, there's not a lot I can think of that have been this big and, you know, will cover a serious issue, but is also quite funny. I mean, obviously the shift is a lot now to TV and stuff, and I guess some shows, I mean, I don't know. I still haven't watched Adolescence. Is there a lot of laughs in that?
No, there are no laughs. No, there's not. I mean, it's the thing with Adolescence is each episode. It's only 3 episodes. They're all filmed in one big long take. You know what I mean? So there's not a lot of time for. There might be like a little bit of incredibly gentle humour, but there isn't any broad humour in it at all. And there's broad humour in Trainspotting. You know, Spud shit in the bed and then it getting like erupted all over the kitchen in the morning. I mean, that is broad. That is broad humour. You know what I mean? It's disgusting. It's absolutely bogging, but it's also very, very funny.
I think that's why, like, I know Danny Boyle gets a lot of the plaudits, obviously, for it, and rightly so. His direction is incredible, but I think John Hodge has to get a huge amount of credit for being able to adapt that book into what this is, because you know, effectively a book's just a fucking diary of random short stories, really, and although there is a thread kind of running through, but to adapt it into a film that has like a coherent storyline and does actually make sense, but also has those horrific moments in the book and injects quite a lot of humour. And I think little scenes like where Renton's getting his HIV test and, you know, they just sticks the needle in and he goes, ow. It's funny, you know, and gives him the look, and you're like, Jesus Christ, he's getting an HIV test here, and he's making jokes, and you know, but it is a funny thing. There's a lot of stuff, exactly as you say, that is funny, and it starts off. I mean, fuck me, the film just grabs a hold of you from the very first minute that you forget, like fucking Lust for Life bang.
Yeah.
That opening, they're running down Princess Street away from fucking John Menzies security guards. And it just grabs a hold of you. And it's interspersed with these funny moments, like when they're playing football and stuff, and he's getting, you're already laughing. And then it's like straight into the heroin. And you're like, okay, this is where we're going here. I think, this film just still has like this cultural gravity to this day. Like when someone mentions it, everyone thinks about a specific scene, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whether it's the toilet scene, the dead baby scene, or them running down Princess Street. There's a moment that kind of everyone will remember. Or Spud, the shit going everywhere.
Yeah.
That's probably what most people will think about, one of those scenes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I watched this when I watched it for the pod today, I watched it on my iPad, with my headphones on, because I was, I didn't want to watch it. But I keep saying today, this week, I was at work in my office, right? So I had the door shut, I had my headphones on, and I think it might be the first time I've ever watched the film with headphones on. I definitely watched it on an iPad a couple of times. And just so that, you get the kind of the idents for the studios, you get the film 4 ident, and then you just get the drums from Lust for Life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've got decent headphones. I've got like a good set of Bose headphones, nice quality and stuff. So when it kicks in, you're literally, like you say, it's a fucking assault on the senses. And then the first 5 minutes of the kind of montage, running away, running into the car, the five-a-side, the cut back, the quick cuts back to the squat that they're in, Johnny Swan's, when they're taking heroin, and, Ewan McGregor slowly, as he's taking a draw of the cigarette, as he slowly falls, and it keeps cutting back to that, and then a little bit of, you see them actually using, and then the credits come on, I mean, not the credits, but the film title, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've been introduced to the characters, and then the title, and the train, that kind of goes from your left ear to your right ear, that the sound effect of the train, and you're into this film, and straight away you've got Renton giving up the skag, you know what I mean, and him talking you through how you prepare for the long night ahead with your buckets and your pornography and your television and your Lucozade and all that, and your mum's Valium. And it's just like, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? It's one of those films that if you were able just to see it for the first time every time, but obviously, which is impossible, but like if I could just recapture that feeling of seeing it for the first time again, you could bottle it and sell it, because it's just so amazing.
See, I wondered about this because I had thought, like, how would this work nowadays in terms of someone watching Trainspotting for the first time? And then I think the reason I'd thought this more specifically was about T2 and the impact that has. Now, I can very rarely watch Trainspotting now without watching T2.
Right.
I remember that the first time I watched T2, I was a bit disappointed by it. I don't know why. It just wasn't. Every time I've watched it since then, my affection for it grows more and more and more. And I fucking love that film.
Same.
I watched it last night with a huge smile on my face. There's a couple of brilliant, like the most I laughed out of the watching them back to back over the last couple of nights. It's little things, different places. When Renton gives Sick Boy the money back, and then he's sitting in the flat with Veronica and she's counting it, and he's like, £4,000. Like, what am I going to do? Buy a fucking time machine and go back. Just like laughing so much. But we lived it. We grew up with the characters over those 20 years. So for us to see that, it was a big thing. And now it's we get it. We understand. We were there.
Yeah.
We were there. We lived it with them. So it makes sense for us that this is like, oh, this is so great. This is them all grown up. This is how I am now.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it last night, and when Renton's like, I'm 46. And I'm like, fuck, I'm only a year away from you now. And it just felt like, I get it. Someone watching Trainspotting and then T2 for the first time, they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand. And that's not me saying you weren't there, you don't know. But I just wonder how they understand that. Did you I think you said your eldest daughter watched Trainspotting.
Yeah.
Was it a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And what did she think of it when she first watched it?
I mean, I wanted her to see it. Now, she was a little bit younger than obviously I was, because I was 17 when I saw it. I think she was probably around 15. I did have to fast forward through the sex scene because she was just too uncomfortable watching a graphic sex scene with her old dad. But I mean, she enjoyed the film. I remember when this came out, there was a bit of a lazy debate or a lazy argument that, it glamorizes drug use. And I always felt, from reading the book and then watching the film, probably especially watching the film because obviously it's very graphic, the drug use, where it's all described in the book, and the book does not paint. The book, if anything, paints an even worse picture of what it is to be addicted to heroin. But watching the film for the first time, like, if anything, I mean, I wouldn't say that I would ever have tried heroin anyway, regardless. No. But it really made me never want to do it because what the film does a good job of doing, much like the book and Irvin Welsh's subsequent books about these characters, it really underpins how crippling that type of addiction is. You know, in the same way that Tyrannosaur, the movie with Peter Mullen, and My Name is Joe sort of shows the crippling impact of alcoholism. You know, when you're all in, like Joe had been. It just doesn't. I mean, if I'd ever had any thoughts in my mind about, I wonder what heroin's like to try before, and I don't think I ever did. But if I did, having seen this film when I was 17, I was like, well, I'll never fucking do that because that looks absolutely horrendous. And I didn't want to show it to my daughter to put her off heroin. But I wanted her, you know, it's a side of life that for some people that I think it's important to be aware of. You know what I mean? And, you know, she's grown up in the Middle East. Who knows what she'll do with her life? You know, she's almost 18. But I wanted her to understand that, you know, where she was born in Scotland, she comes from Scotland, and I'm sure even now in 2026 that there are still people who live in a similar way to how the characters in Trainspotting live in the scenes when they're using heroin. You know what I mean? Like that kind of existence, having to steal, you know, getting hold of whatever, any sort of medicines and things to try and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted her to see the sort of desperation of it, but if I'm being honest, I also wanted her to see a cool film, you know, as well. Yeah, like it wasn't just about showing her like a horrendous social situation. It was about her sort of movie education as well, and seeing a film that meant a lot to me when I was round about her age, you know.
The first point there is, I know, I remember the time they were speaking about glamorizing drug use and stuff, and I really don't think it does. What I think that Danny Boyle does in a very careful way, and John Hodge with the writing, is they don't say like, this is the worst thing in the world, right? They make it look that way. But I think it's because it does show the good. I don't mean the good side, but why they take heroin. Yeah. You have to show that to have the balance, because if you're just like, oh, look at these junkies, look at how worthless they are, heroin shit, they can't do anything, then you don't have a very good film there. You have to have the balance. You have to be able to show, like, you know, them being all strung out, but still doing stuff.
Well,
and
I think it comes back to just having trust in the audience. It's like, they present these situations and they trust the audience to see it for what it is, you know?
But I
being
agree,
preachy, you know?
Never once made me think, oh, I'd like to try that. And yeah, the only time throughout the two films, the only time I do get a pang is during T2, and it's the scene where Sick Boy and they've just ripped off the lodge, and they're back at the flat, and they're full of ching, and they're speaking to Veronica and telling her all about George Best and stuff, and just every time I watch that, I'm like, that looks like a fucking great time.
It's a good night. Yeah.
I'd fucking love to be there drinking beers, doing coke with a beautiful Bulgarian girl, and
my best pal.
Speaking about my best mate. Speaking about this, this was Mark McGee. He was a fucking legend. Willie Miller.
There's no fat people there. There's no fat people.
Yeah, exactly.
Finn, nobody was fat back then.
It's not just the football, is it? It's the end of austerity.
There was no such thing even as a calorie till 1974. You were hammed in 1974.
He's John Barry with football boots.
See, look at that guy. He would be
the second point you touched upon in terms of watching a film from our youth, a classic film. Now, we're supposed to be speaking about the impact that it had culturally.
Yeah, we'll get there.
There were a load of films came off the back of this, and we mentioned them like in the last episode. Specifically, I'm thinking like Twin Town. Yep. I'm thinking about Human Traffic is another huge one, which would not have existed without this. I'm thinking Lock, Stock, and then therefore Snatch, the Full Monty. I do think though that wouldn't. You mentioned a film I know you adore, This Year's Love.
It's true. It's a good film.
And I mean, you could go all the way to possibly like Sexy Beast and The Football Factory. Like, I don't know, maybe that's taking it too far because you had ID.
I don't think it is though. I really don't, because there's. People always say, well, Four Weddings and a Funeral really gave the British film industry a shot in the arm, right? Right, okay. So what's a movie that came out shortly after Four Weddings and a Funeral that's of a similar sort of vibe, romantic comedy, say? You struggle with it. Sliding Doors, maybe, but that was a good few years after Four Weddings. Whereas when this came out, you've within 2 years, you've got Human Traffic, you've got Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrel, you've got Twin Town. And then suddenly there's an appetite for the sort of drama that A Play for Today was doing for fucking years in the late 60s and 1970s, but presented in a sort of stylish way, like Trainspotting. You know what I mean? Or like Twin Town, or like Human Traffic, or even The Football Factory. it's dealing with I know it was a good few years later, but it's dealing with like a serious subject, like football hooliganism. And it doesn't make it, I think I think Nick Love he kind of thinks that kind of thing is cool, I think. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say he just presents football hooliganism and lets the audience make its mind up. You know what I mean? He sort of idolizes these characters to some extent, even in The Firm as well, and all his films. I don't think I think he kind of misses the point a little bit. But there's loads of movies that came off the back of this that are really showing life in the UK and this, working class, if you want to call it that, or people on the margins, but presenting it in a cool and stylish way with cool music and good-looking actors and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely changed a lot of stuff. And I think it was the impact. Like, you take Lock, Stock, I think that was a huge amount in terms of the thing I love about Trainspotting, the thing I love about watching it again now is it doesn't fucking hold back in terms of Scottish language and dialect. Yeah. So much so that in America, I think they had to redub the first 20 minutes or so, famously. And then once they kind of got their ears tuned to it, then they let it go. But it really doesn't hold back, especially Begbie. But even, some of the stuff, Spud, fuck, everyone actually, Tommy Renton, like they all say stuff. I guess Sick Boy's probably the only one that really speaks with a kind of, proper like Edinburgh accent in terms of that. And it's only because Johnny Lee Miller's English doing a Scottish accent, I think. Yeah. And I do think that it helped stuff like Lock, Stock get the Cockney accents kind of over and being able to just unashamedly do this. I genuinely think a lot of it, like the colour palette as well, because Lock, Stock's a very specific kind of, it's almost like a washed out kind of the colour palette, like, and a lot of Trainspotting is a bit like that as well. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of colour in the film, really. Well, there is, I suppose, like Begbie's jumpers and stuff.
And the flats that Renton's walking past when he's incontinent, his constipation wears off.
Yes, but that's a beautiful.
There's quite a lot that Lock, Stock has in common with Trainspotting, like because Lock, Stock's also a little bit timeless as well. There's a kind of mixture of different styles and vehicles and things. The soundtrack, the narration, you know what I mean? Like it's obviously it's what's his name, the guy who plays Bricktop and Snatch, what the actor's name, but he narrates Lock, Stock in the way that Renton narrates a lot of Trainspotting, like not all of it, but a lot of it. So I think there is and I don't know that if there is an argument to say if it wasn't for the success of Trainspotting, Guy Ritchie might have had a harder time getting Lock, Stock made, potentially, for sure.
I think so, without a doubt. Yeah, no question about that at all. I'd say probably the two that are mostly linked would be Twin Town. Mm-hmm. Now, I've seen that once.
It's good fun.
And I don't know if it holds up comparatively compared to Trainspotting.
I've seen it for years, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the other one that I haven't seen for years, but I could fucking guarantee it does not hold up one little bit compared to this would be Human Trafficking.
Yeah.
Now, very different in terms of that's obviously about ecstasy and kind of the drug
scene,
culture of the time and club scene. That's a bit different, but
the club scene of Cardiff.
Yeah, I just don't think that would hold up at all.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I've not watched all of Human Traffic for many, many years, but I have seen some clips on YouTube. And there's some bits that are still quite good fun, you know what I mean, and nice. And there's other bits that you're a bit like, oh, it kind of belongs where it is, you know. My problem with Human Traffic, I think my problem always with Human Traffic was that the scenes back in the day when it came out, like the scenes of them in the clubs and the nightlife and everything were always good fun. But the more kind of earnest scenes, you know, like the whole love thing with John Sim and he's worried that he's not going to be able to get it up, and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really, I don't know, it's a bit of a mixed up film, Human Traffic. But I mean, at the time, I guess it was, I mean, I loved it at the time, for sure. It was definitely a good film to watch when I was getting ready to go out, especially when I was getting ready to go out for the kind of night that the characters in the movie were getting ready to go out for, you know?
I think one thing that like all those films have in common as well, and I don't know if you could say they copied it from Trainspotting. Technically, maybe yes, no.
Inspired by, perhaps.
The sound. Yeah. Now, I think for me, Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction kind of broke the mold for our generation. Going back, obviously everyone, you know, had the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, the Grease soundtrack. I know my mum had Dirty Dancing soundtrack and stuff. Soundtracks were a thing. The Bodyguard, you know.
Well, I had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soundtrack.
So did I. I had that as well. That was a wonderful soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack.
Fucking brilliant. But in terms of, I know I had Reservoir Dogs one, I had the Pulp Fiction one. They were great because they were interspersed with like clips from the films and stuff, and it was cool. That was sometimes nice. Trainspotting changed the mold, I think, in a way as well. Lust for Life, Perfect Day, Deep Blue Day by Brian Eno, all there, but mixed in with Britpop, Pulp, Blur, Sleeper, then chuck in a bit of dance music, Underworld, Left Field. You know, it's a bizarre. It works. It works so well in the film, and I was quite surprised watching this again. I always forget how early Born Slippy starts in the film. It's the moment Franco blows the smoke in Renton's face. So it starts before that last scene, and it just starts so much earlier, and the way it builds up going through Renton and following his decision as he takes his, you know, drinks some sink water from the fucking little grubby sink, slowly grabbing the bag, acknowledging Spud, and then it just builds up, and then it builds up when Franco's fucking trashing the room. And Renton walking away on something uncertain. It's incredible use of music in that. But all throughout the film, the music is just used to perfection almost.
I couldn't agree more. And what I always thought was quite interesting was there's two soundtracks, isn't there? There's the orange one, which is a classic one, and then there's a green one.
Yeah.
And the green one, it has a couple of remixes, but it doesn't really have any songs that are on the soundtrack apart from Temptation by Heaven 17. But it's got like the Passenger by Iggy Pop is not on there. Come Together by Primal Scream is not in the film. Atmosphere by Joy Division. There's a remix of Born Slippy. Golden Years by Bowie. I don't know how the fuck they got that on there. You know what I mean? That must have cost a fortune, but it's not in the film. You know, but it's like music inspired by. What does it say on the title of the thing? It says music from the motion picture and more.
I know they wanted Golden Years in the film. They wanted it, and Bowie wouldn't let them for some reason. But then Bowie ended up being able to get them Perfect Day and Lust for Life because he produced those songs. So he was able to get the rights to them. But for some, I read it somewhere, I don't know if it's true, that he didn't want them to use Golden Years or something. But I guess maybe because the film was a success and the soundtrack was a success, he was like, fuck it, have it for the fucking obvious cash grab of the Green soundtrack. That's all that is, a cash grab.
For sure. But I mean, the thing is, like, for Underworld, you know, they obviously they still, but people go to see Underworld, and Underworld still are on the go. People go to see, they have to play that song. You know what I mean? They have to play it, and you know when this movie came out, I sort of had like a toe in electronic music because I like New Order, and New Order's got like a bit of electronic in it, and I liked electronic. Bernard Sumner's group after the New Order.
Getting Away With It is a fucking great show.
Yeah, and I liked groups like the Propellerheads and Left Field and stuff like that. You know, I always liked the Prodigy. So I kind of had a toe in there, but I couldn't tell you another Underworld song apart from Born Slippy. I couldn't tell you it. And Primal Scream, obviously seminal sort of Scottish band. I've been listening to some of their older albums actually over the last few weeks. And the thing I like about Primal Scream is obviously Screamadelic is their big album. And then they did after that they did, what's it called? You got to give what you got to give out, whatever. The one with the Dukes of Hazzard flag on the front. Yeah. And it's like a complete Memphis sort of, it's like a Stones album almost. There's a couple of good songs on it, like Jailbird and Cry Myself Blind. But it could pick a different band. And then they do Vanishing Point, the album, which is kind of back on Screamadelica sort of terra firma. But it has the Trainspotting song on it. The song they did, it's just music, Trainspotting. They squeezed that on the Vanishing Point album, which I thought was really weird. Yeah, because the Trainspotting soundtrack was the third best selling compilation album in the UK of 1996. Top best selling was Now 35, and the second best selling was Now 34.
Oh wow!
Trainspotting soundtrack is the third best selling in the UK that year.
I mean, yeah. The music choices are great. I will say, I do think Perfect Day for me, it's used perfectly in that scene. Yeah. It's great, I think. Yeah. It was ruined a year or so later when the BBC used it for Children in Need.
Yeah, it was ruined.
That put me out.
But I think enough time's passed that you can come back and enjoy that song again.
I put it up there with a podcast we both listened to. I thought Cunt described it was a perfect description that I would put to Perfect Day. He was talking about Karma Chameleon.
Right.
It's a fucking great song. I don't want to hear it ever again.
Really?
And I would happily do without hearing Perfect Day again. Karma Chameleon I'll listen to. But yeah,
it's not as good as the Church of the Poison Mind though.
Oh no, that's without a doubt Culture Club's best song. Fucking love that song so much. When you think of Trainspotting, do you have a song you think of that comes in?
I mean, I would like to say Perfect Day or Temptation, but it's probably Lust for Life that springs to mind immediately. More so than Born Slippy. Though I'm not I don't really love Born Slippy, if I'm being honest. I think the song works really well, how it's used in the film. It does work well, but there's better songs on here. Like the Elastica song, 2 to 1 is brilliant. I think Perfect Day is a brilliant song still. I have not allowed the Children in Need charity cover with Heather Small and Tom
I was
Jones.
just about to say Heather Small.
I mean, I can't even believe that fucking Lou Reed is on there. Like Sing by Blur is a fucking brilliant song. The Mile End by Pulp is a brilliant song. Sleeper's cover of Atomic is brilliant. You know?
That's my one. That's the song that I think obviously Lust for Life, but if I'm thinking about it, it's Sleeper's version of Atomic that I think of. Probably because I do love Sleeper. I genuinely, like, I was in love with Louise Weiner, but genuinely, Sleeper's first 3 albums, they had a new album a few years ago. I haven't listened to that properly. Those first 3 albums, I love of Sleeper, and I still listen to them. I think they're great. Maybe it's because that song plays over the nightclub and the sex scene that I watched so many times as a 15-year-old boy that's why it's ingrained in my head. And maybe I associate it with that, which is why I still love this song.
Right.
And I associate Perfect Day with, I keep wanting to say Heather Small. Maybe that's what's put me off that. Don't know.
I mean, I had never heard Perfect Day before I saw this film. I wasn't familiar with the song before I saw Trainspotting for the first time. But I don't know. I just think Perfect Day is it's a really powerful sort of sad song. You know what I mean? I think it's brilliant.
I haven't got. Do you still have up there? Do you have the green Trainspotting track list up there close by.
Yes.
Because if it's inspired by... Is Two Little Boys by Rolf Harris on there?
No, funnily enough, it's not.
Because Spud sings it in the pub, so I wondered if it was on there. Is that the most inappropriate thing about this film, looking back 30 years on, that he sings Two Little Boys?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a shame that it was written by a convicted paedophile. That's a shame. But if you can see past that and just focus on the song, it's quite a evocative, sad song, Two Little Boys, especially in the context here when Spud's singing it in the pub at Tommy's wake, It's just a shame that it was written by Rolf Harris, another of the BBC's grabby, inappropriate presenters.
And, I mean, speaking of nonsense, you couldn't get away with this. Would you get away with this nowadays in a film? I keep saying this, I don't know if I watch enough modern films to know if this would happen. Kelly MacDonald, 19 at the time, portraying a 15-year-old Diane, has a very graphic sex scene, full frontal nudity. I have to say, watching it as a 45-year-old man and still getting turned on by her in her school uniform was a bit worrying, but she's 19, it's fine. Would you get away with that nowadays? Having someone portray a 15-year-old and doing full frontal nudity and having a graphic sex scene? I'm not sure. I don't watch enough stuff to maybe... I was thinking about starting Euphoria, but they're older, aren't they?
So I guess the short answer is I don't know, because I've not watched Euphoria. I have seen a scene from Euphoria with Sydney Sweeney. Okay. And it's arguably a more graphic sex scene than the one in Trainspotting.
Okay. Yeah. But is she portraying are they're
high school kids? They're high school
kids.
Yeah.
Right. Might start watching Euphoria tonight. I just wondered if there was anything that would be comparable nowadays. I'll watch Euphoria and I'll let you know in the next episode if
well, do you remember the kind of fury around the film Kids that came out?
Yes, very much so.
With what's her name? She's in Star Wars now. The mixed race actress that's in Clerks 2. Her name is not coming to me.
Oh, Rosario Dawson.
Right. And some other fairly well-known faces. Maybe one other well-known face of the kind of modern actor. And obviously that movie, I don't know if I'm saying obviously, but that movie, I've never seen it, but it portrays kids that are supposed to be 14, 15, having sex and taking drugs and all that. I don't know. I mean, I do think that, I think studios would be less likely to take a chance on something like Trainspotting now. I think if this film hadn't been made and Irvin Welsh was trying to get his book made into something for the screen, I think it would probably be made into a streaming service TV show.
Yeah,
I don't think that he would have got a release because this it was released in the UK first, but it was an international release eventually. Like you mentioned in the US rather, they had to redub the beginning of it so the American audiences would understand it. But it was ultimately became an international film. I don't know that a studio, or even a studio like Film 4, because Film 4 was fairly new, I think. They had done Shallow Grave. I think Film 4 did Shallow Grave and some other film before they did Trainspotting. And now Film 4 is its own channel, right? It's, but I don't even think Film 4 would make a film like that. I don't know if Film 4 still make films. I don't know if they still do.
I got a funny feeling they do.
Yeah.
I see something recently. I can't remember. Or
Channel 4 films.
In association with Film 4.
Channel 4 films. So it was distributed by Polygram internationally. But notable productions. The last notable production of Channel 4 films, as we're calling it now. Sorry, I don't know if you'd have heard of any of them, but Hot Milk 2025. I mean,
no.
Last Night in Soho, which is a really good film.
Oh, yeah, it's a great film.
Channel 4 film. All of Us Strangers, which I've not seen, but I'm told it's good, with Andrew Scott and Jamie Bell. Saint Maud. I think Wild Rose when that came out, 2016.
Yeah.
That's a Macbeth with In-Betweeners, of course. In-Betweeners.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Three Billboards is a Channel 4 film. So
there you go.
Stand corrected. Good old Film 4. Still cranking out good movies.
I think we'd spoken about it. I'm sure we did when we were doing the original podcast. But, in terms of there's no question, career. after Trainspotting who did the best. I mean, McGregor obviously has done, huge things. Boyle, Academy Award winner and stuff, so I think we can maybe take them out the equation. I think Carlisle, Bremner and Lee Miller have had great careers. I think you could probably argue that out of the rest of the cast, it's MacDonald and McKidd that have probably done
McKidd especially,
I'm saying McKidd because he was in Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
And he is recognised, like people know him. That's the thing. I always forget that Kelly MacDonald was in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, she's very good in it. In fact, yeah.
She's fantastic in it.
And Boardwalk Empire as well, which I know you didn't love that, but that was a big deal.
Yeah. I watched the first series. And I did like her in it, and then I think I've said before, maybe it was the second series I watched? When the main character fucked his mum, I stopped watching. I was like, this is not for me. No. But she's still doing great. She was Department Q recently, and I still fancy the hell out of her, and she's wonderful, and I might pick Brave soon just to do something with her in it, to get her on the pod again. But I think she's done really well, and what I love about this is I'm still 30 years on learning things about the film and learning things about the production and stuff and little things that I was like, how did I not know that before? Like, do you know about the Robert Carlyle when auditioning for the film and stuff, the story about him auditioning for Shallow Grave and not getting it? And
I know that Danny Boyle initially wanted Christopher Eccleston to play Begbie, and then I can't remember what happened. I read Christopher Eccleston's autobiography a few years ago, and he does mention what happened there. I can't remember. It wasn't anything unpleasant. I think he was maybe doing Our Friends in the North or something like that, and he couldn't. They couldn't commit to it because Danny Boyle originally saw Begbie as a big guy. I think Christopher Eccleston's quite tall.
Yeah, I mean that's how Begbie is in the book. He is kind of, I think, described as a
skin-headed big fella, right? Yeah.
And that's, so, I mean, the very short version is Carlisle had auditioned for Shallow Grave for Ewan McGregor's role and got down the final few. And I think in one of the last auditions, Boyle had said to him, like, he'd done the reading and he said, that's great. Could you do it a little bit, could you soften your accent, make him a little bit posher kind of thing? Wait. And Carlisle said, no, I can't do that. And Boyle said, okay, why? He said, because I don't think the character speaks like that. And Boyle goes, okay, right, thank you very much. And Carlisle left and he's like, oh, fuck, what did I do that for?
Yeah.
So Boyle sends him the script for Trainspotting, invites him to a meeting, and he sits him down and he says, right, Ewan McGregor is playing Brenton. What part do you want to play? Just offered him a part. And Carlisle said, I was thinking maybe Sick Boy. And Boyle said, interesting. I'm thinking Begbie, which Carlisle obviously said, but Begbie's like a big guy thing. And Boyle, the famous kind of line, he says, trust me, small psychos are the scariest.
Yeah.
And Begbie was born. And little things along the way that you're kind of forgetting that, initially the costume designer, it was combat trousers and like bomber jackets and stuff. And it was Carlisle that was like, nah, he dressed like a casual.
Yeah.
He wanted the light, the bright sweaters, the slacks, the things. And when he turned up the first day of the table read, he had this big beard. And he's just like, it's not right. I don't know what's wrong. And he says, I shaved it into a mustache. And I was like, fucking gold. Only psychos have mustaches now. I love that 30 years later, I'm still learning things about this production and the film and just how everything just panned out. And it's because it's just this classic that has resonated with us for so long and so many, 30 years that I'm still speaking about it. I could never get bored speaking about this film, I don't think.
No, I could do like a whole Trainspotting series of pods and just talk about it for hours and hours and hours. I mean, the thing is, I think, like we said earlier on, it remains despite the difficult subject matter of the film, it just remains a really cool and stylish film. You know what I mean? Like the way it's slick as hell. It's like a masterclass in storytelling. And the book is so abstract. The fact that John Hodge is able just to cherry pick chapters from the book and spin out this narrative. I don't think he necessarily gets enough credit.
No.
For that, really, and then to, with Trainspotting 2 or T2, it's not like some bits of it are in porno, like the sequel to Trainspotting, but really it's a fairly original story, really. You know,
Yeah.
there's one or two little scenes that pop up in porno that are adapted in, but it's an original story, and it's a good story. You know,
And as it says at the end, it's based on Trainspotting and porno by Irvin Welsh, because there's scenes from Trainspotting that are in
of course, yeah.
T2. So like when they meet Begbie's dad,
Yes.
that's in there. And I think it says a lot that there was the demand for that, and it says a lot that even last year Irvin Welsh released Men in Love, which is the sixth one.
Yeah, there's Trainspotting, porno,
3, 4, 5. The sixth book.
right?
Yeah. If you're going in kind of chronological order, we've got Skag Boys, Trainspotting, Men in Love, Porno, The Blade Artist, Dead Men's Trousers.
Right, of course, yeah.
6 books, which, I mean, surely there's nothing left now. We've covered all the ground. There's nowhere. I thought Men in Love was a bit much of like, right, so you're putting something in between Trainspotting and Porno.
Yeah.
But we know that we know Renton doesn't meet anyone in that time. So how the fuck does this work? It fucking worked.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed that book.
I liked it, yeah.
Or is it just that we love the characters so much?
I think it's a bit of both, really.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of both, you know. I mean, it's a good story. It's nice being with those characters again, you know, because although they're all in various different ways, they're all pretty reprehensible. You know, I think what Welsh is good at with his books is that he's good at, he'll have maybe a character remembering something in a story, and then years later he'll come back to it, you know, so like Begbie attacking Seeker, and you know, like that's part of Begbie's story, you know, it's like how he ends up in jail and various other things. Not Seeker, like one of the Donnellys, like, you know, which that appears in Men in Love and all that kind of thing. And he's good at he's sort of built a bit of a Irvin Welsh universe with these characters, and they even appear in some of his other books like Glue. You know, he brings them into Glue, very much a cameo. And I think I think I've seen him being interviewed, and I think he likes just to revisit some of his favourite characters. Like I know that Just Terry from Glue is a favourite character of his. Obviously Lennox from Filth. You know, that's going to be a successful TV series, Crime, and you know, and he's written 3 books with Lennox as the main character. 3 or 4 books? 3 books, 4 books?
3. I mean, if you include Filth as 1, then 4. But 3. There was Crime, The Long Knives,
and Retribution.
Yeah, that's it.
So I haven't, because we've put Trainspotting through the Swally Awards before. I've not done it this time.
Neither have I. I didn't see any point because I thought we've done it before. So I didn't see any need to do it. So
great minds think alike. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's 30 years of Trainspotting then. Well, that was kind of a mutual choice, Greg. My choice was the Good Time Girls on the previous episode. So it's your choice on the next episode of the podcast. So why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about then?
So we've mentioned a couple of times today how you won't always, like, it maybe takes a film studio a lot of faith before they will make a movie that presents a difficult social issue. So I've picked one that does that very thing, and it's a modern film. So I'm bringing us right up to date to 2025, and the Robert Arameo, Maxine Peake, and Shirley Henderson and Peter Mullen award-winning, controversial for different reasons, not because of the film, but because of the awards ceremony a few weeks ago. I Swear. Have you watched it already?
I have, and I'll save it for the next episode. I'm just laughing because is it forever going to be tainted? Well, we'll discuss that in the next episode.
Yeah, let's see.
But I did love the, I think it was the Kevin Bridges. I don't know if you saw that. It was like the week after, and he was doing a kind of new material, like kind of little stand-up show to test new stuff. And he briefly spoke about it, and he said, it's fucking first time Americans have understood a Scottish accent.
I did see that, actually.
Wonderful. I can't fucking wait to watch that again, Greg. Thank you. So in the next episode, I swear, I just always get that fucking All For One. Was it All For One or was it Boys to Men? All For One, wasn't it? And I swear by the moon and... Anyway, enough of that. Anyway. Okay, I swear. Next episode of The Swally. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can. You can email us, cultureswally@gmail.com, with anything you've seen in the news, anything you'd like us to cover. If you're American, tell us who you're supporting once the USA go out for World Cup. And yeah, if you just want to get in touch and say hello, then feel free to do so. And we have a wonderful website as well, don't we, Greg?
We do. You can find us at cultureswally.com. Links to all our episodes there, and some articles about Scottish television and Scottish film. Come and give us a little bit of traffic over there.
Fantastic. Right. Well, it's late on a Friday night for you, Greg.
It's late, yeah.
Up to anything exciting, or is that it?
No, it's Easter weekend. We're recording this Good Friday today, which means very little here in the Middle East. But despite that, I am cooking a leg of lamb tomorrow. So I need to go and marinate it before I go to bed.
Okay.
So I'm going to go and do that.
Good luck with that. You enjoy. I'm off to go and start Euphoria. Okay. Cheers, buddy. Till next time.
Until next time.
Can we go home now?
2 hours to the next train.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Look, well, here's an active memorial.
Nostalgia. That's why you're here. You're a tourist in your own youth.